I never thought I'd see the day when a group of clipboard-carrying neighbors would try to steal the land my family had owned for over a century. But that's exactly what happened. The morning I opened that certified letter from the HOA, something twisted inside me: anger, disbelief, and a quiet promise that this wasn't over. My 1,500 acres weren't just dirt and fences. My great-grandfather bought that land in 1912, built a small barn with his bare hands, and raised cattle through the Great Depression. Every fence post, every oak tree had a story. And now, a handful of HOA board members, folks who'd only lived here a decade, thought they could sell it off to expand community access. They called it a necessary land adjustment for public improvement. I called it theft. It all started when a new HOA president moved in, a slick-talking real estate man named Brad McKinley. He drove a shiny black Escalade, wore polos so crisp they could cut glass, and treated the neighborhood like a business he owned. A few months after he was elected, strange things started happening. Surveyors on my driveway, new boundary markers hammered into my fence line, then a glossy brochure in my mailbox showing future community developments right on my land. I marched into the HOA office, that little tan building by the pool, and slammed the brochure on the counter. "You can't just redraw my property line," I said. Brad leaned back in his chair with that smug smile of his. "Actually, according to the county's updated map," he said, "a portion of your property now falls under HOA jurisdiction. We voted on it." My hands trembled. "You voted to steal 1,500 acres of private land?" He shrugged. "Progress always upsets somebody." That was the moment it hit me. This wasn't about property. It was about respect, about legacy, about a man who thought he could erase a family's history with a spreadsheet. I called up my old friend Joe, a lawyer who'd been handling land disputes for 30 years. When he looked over the paperwork, his jaw dropped. "They forged the amendment," he said quietly. "Filed it at the county clerk's office using outdated plats and fake board signatures. This isn't a misunderstanding. It's fraud." My first instinct was to march back to that HOA office and confront them, but Joe stopped me. "Let them hang themselves first," he said. "We'll collect every document, every witness, every sale record. You stay calm and patient." So I waited. For months, I watched them pour money into their so-called expansion plan. They fenced off part of my cattle range, bulldozed century-old trees, and even built a playground near my barn. Every day, I felt that slow burn in my chest. But I held it in. Then, one morning I saw it. A for-sale sign planted right on my property. Premium 1,500 ICO development lot, it read. Approved by HOA board. That was the final straw. Joe and I filed the lawsuit. But we didn't go small. This wasn't just a boundary issue. It was fraud, illegal land transfer, and racketeering. When the county judge read our filing, his eyebrows shot up. "You're saying the HOA illegally sold private land under community authority?" "Yes, sir," Joe said, "and we have every document to prove it." The trial became the biggest story in the county. News crews showed up. Reporters parked outside my gate. Some neighbors whispered that I was overreacting. Others dropped by with coffee, offering quiet words of support during discovery. Joe found the smoking gun, an email from Brad to a developer bragging that he'd secured the old Carter land and that the HOA would get a healthy donation once the project sold. That single email changed everything. Brad strutted into court like he still owned the place until the evidence started rolling in. When the judge read that email aloud, the room went silent. Then came the verdict that echoed through the chamber like a thunderclap. This HOA has committed intentional fraud. All properties under its management are subject to restitution until the damages are repaid. That one sentence gave me the leverage I needed. The HOA didn't have the money to pay back what they owed, the land value, the legal fees, the damage to my property. So, by court order, Their collective assets were to be liquidated, and when those properties went up for auction, I was waiting. One by one, I bought every single home that carried an HOA lien. I didn't raise rents. I didn't kick out innocent families. But the board members, the ones who tried to take my land, I had to go. I'll never forget watching Brad pack up that Escalade. Driving down the main road one last time while I stood on my porch, coffee steaming in my hand. I didn't feel triumph, just peace. I restored what mattered. Rebuilt fences, planted oaks, fixed up the barn roof my great-grandfather once stood under. The good neighbors stayed, and together we started fresh. No board, no politics. Just a real community again, a few months later. The county offered to rename the road after my family, Carter Ridge Lane. I told them I didn't need the name. I just wanted one thing, that the old boundary stone my great-grandfather set in 1912 would stay protected forever. One quiet evening, I walked out to that stone as the sun sank low, painting the fields in gold. The air smelled of cedar and fresh soil. For the first time in years, the land felt free, and so did I. People sometimes ask if I did it for revenge. Truth is, I did it for justice. For the generations before me, and the ones still to come, because when someone tries to take what's rightfully yours, silence isn't peace. It's surrender, and I wasn't raised to. Surrender. Sometimes standing up for what's right means fighting longer than you ever planned, but it's the only way your story becomes worth telling. Have you ever had an HOA? Cross the line like this. Share your story in the comments. I read every single one. If you believe some fights are worth having, hit subscribe, and let's stand up together.